believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Brandes, also known as Ricky Brandes, and a great episode for you today. Today we have returning guest, Christian Yordanov. This is a information-filled podcast about health, nutrition, exercise, big pharma, and many more other related topics. Christian is an expert in all these fields, and he's also an author of the book called The Autism Wellbeing Plan, How to Get Your Child Healthy. And he's also the host of two amazing podcasts. I've been lucky and fortunate enough to be on both of them. One is called the Connecting Minds podcast, and his new podcast, which I recently was on, is called the Children's Health Podcast. And we talk about parenting and obviously our children and their health and how to optimize their health and all the tips and stuff that we do and use. So definitely check that out if that's a topic that you find interesting. I had a lot of positive feedback in regards to my appearance on that podcast, so check out that show in the show description. And on this episode, we talk about a lot of different health issues that Christian is an expert in and has helped a lot of people with. And if you're also struggling with any of these health issues, please use the links in the show description to reach out to Christian. He'll definitely hook you up and take care of you if you let him know you're a listener of the Ripple Effect podcast. A couple other notes. I can't find the video version of this episode. For some reason, the video file has gone missing. If by any chance I find it, you'll find it on all the platforms I'm on: Rumble, Rockfin, Band.video, BitChute, etc. But regardless, if it's a video or audio podcast, sometimes, and it's been a while, but sometimes if a guest only wants to do audio, then I will still put it out on all the platforms I'm on. So please subscribe to the show on all the platforms I'm on. If you're listening to the show on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, which I'm back on for some weird reason. I disappeared on Google Podcasts for a little bit, but I'm back on Google Podcasts. And the cool thing about listening to the Ripple Effect podcast on platforms, some of the video platforms I'm on, like Rumble or Rockfin, is they let you minimize the video. So you can start watching the video, minimize it, have the audio play in the background while you do other things with your phone. So it's super convenient. The last couple of things I want to mention is I am a little behind with releasing these shows. I've been very busy. Obviously, it's a summer, so work is super busy, and then doing things with the family, doing things in regards to sports and activities and all that type of stuff, and trying to be as present and as involved in my kids' lives. It's just very time consuming. So I'm doing my best in trying to get these episodes out as quickly as possible, but I am a little bit behind, so bear with me. I am planning on releasing these episodes much quicker this week because I have a little bit of free time, and I have a much anticipated John Stockton podcast that I'm hoping to release also very soon after this one. If you guys aren't familiar with John Stockton, he is the all-time leader in assists and steals in the NBA. Literally one of the best basketball players that have ever played the game, and also a very outspoken person in regards to some of the social issues we discuss on this podcast. So very fascinating podcast. I was a little nervous on that one, and there's not a whole lot of guests that make me nervous, but I definitely got nervous on the John Stockton podcast, and I'm hoping with releasing these episodes a little quicker and getting you more content, hopefully I also start seeing a little bit more support in regards to sharing, reviewing, subscribing, and any financial support for those of you who can financially support the show. And this is the part of the show where I remind you this is a value for value show. If you do get some value out of these discussions, which I think you do because that's why you're listening, please consider giving some value back. Don't be a cheap ass. If you can afford it, give as little as $1 a month on Patreon. And if you do that, then you'll be a part of our Patreon podcast, which is a podcast I release as a full episode. But what I do is I record a episode with just the fans, the listeners, the people who support me on Patreon. We all hang out, we talk for an hour or two, and then I release it as an episode. So if you want to be on the next one, please consider supporting the Ripple Effect podcast with as little as $1 a month. And believe me, I know things are expensive, but what can you get for $1? Not much, but you can get the peace of mind that you are contributing to helping the Ripple Effect podcast expand, grow, and helping with the goal of eventually doing the show full time. So if a small percentage of the people who download, watch, and listen to the Ripple Effect podcast donated as little as $1 a month, I could easily do the show full time. So that shows you how little we all have to contribute to help reach that goal. And of course, there's other ways of supporting the show. You can support the show by sending a one-time donation via PayPal, Venmo. You can also send crypto to our crypto wallet if you want to send Ethereum or Bitcoin. We also have a merch store with hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, mugs, and many other items. So please check out the merch store. If you have kids, there's also kids clothes there, hoodies, t-shirts, all types of stuff. So please check out the Ripple Effect Podcast merch store. You can go directly to it by going to the Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com, or you can use the links in the show description or on my website, the rippleeffectpodcast.com. And then, of course, I have some sponsors. One of the most important sponsors is Content Safe. Matt from Content Safe has protected my podcast by making sure when I got kicked off YouTube that you could still find my podcast on all the other video platforms. So he also created my website and he manages that, which I can't thank him enough. So if you're a streamer, podcaster, or content creator that would like to sync all your video channels together so you only have to upload to one location, or you're a content creator who needs a website, needs any type of IT help, please reach out to Matt from Content Safe. Let him know you're a listener to Ripple Effect Podcast, and he'll definitely hook you up and help you out. And the next sponsor is the University of Reason, created by Richard Grove. And Matt from Content Safe actually went to the University of Reason and did the autonomy courses. So it was a huge help for him to connect with a liberty-minded community, with connect and network with people who could help him start his company and get tips and advice. So if this is something you're interested in, if you're at a crossroads in life, if you're looking to do something new, learn some new skills, check out the University of Reason and the very popular autonomy courses. Let them know you're a listener to Ripple Effect Podcast, and hopefully you can help your life and contribute to the Ripple Effect Podcast at the same time by using the links in the show description or on my website. And my last sponsor is Element Electrolytes, created by Rob Wolf, one of my favorite products in regards to optimizing my mind and body. And there's many of you listening who probably have a little bit of brain fatigue, muscle fatigue, cramps, headaches, and many other symptoms that are due to dehydration, and you might not even know it. Or maybe you play sports or lift weights and you're looking for a way to optimize your performance. Check out Element Electrolytes. There's a lot of ways of staying hydrated out there and plenty of products on the market, but many of them have artificial flavors, colors, and their dosages aren't correct. And what I mean by that is, are you getting enough of the sodium, potassium, and magnesium that you need to really optimize your performance? And of course, when we sweat, if we ever get some of that sweat in our mouths, it tastes salty. And the reason why it does is because the majority of what you're sweating out is sodium. So that's what we need to put back in our body. And that's why Element Electrolytes gives you enough sodium to really make a difference. And the flavors taste amazing. You buy these little packets, you put them in water. You can bring them with you if you're on vacation. You can bring them with you if you're going to the gym or going to play sports. You have the peace of mind that it was formulated by Rob Wolf, who is one of the most respected people in the health and nutrition world and has been on every major health and nutrition podcast you could think of, including quite a few times on Rogan's podcast. And if you want to hear the origin story of Element Electrolytes, check out his last appearance on my show, the Ripple Effect Podcast, and get the full story on why he put these ingredients in there, why he went with these dosages, and much more. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and I really recommend you guys checking out his appearance on my show or any show, just because I can guarantee you'll definitely learn something. So that's it, guys. Use the links in the show description, please. and especially use the links in the show description for Element Electrolytes because you'll get a free gift with every purchase, and use the links in the show description to all my sponsors because you'll get a discount or you'll get some perk by using that link, and it's a great way of supporting the Ripple Effect podcast. And of course, if you can't financially support the show, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on all the platforms I'm on. And that's it, guys. Enjoy this amazing podcast with Christian, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace. What time is it there now?
7:30 ish. Yeah,
7:30.
it's not too bad at all.
Did you watch the last Portugal Bosnia game, or do you, living in the country, do you watch? Have you got caught up in some of the culture and follow some of the football and stuff like that?
I don't have a TV, so
that.
We don't have a TV, so we don't catch anything. And I the last few weeks have been crazy with like just all my health clients and like doing bits and pieces for my website. So it's been crazy. It's been a bit crazy. So no time for anything like that. But did we at least win? Did Portugal win?
Yeah. They won 3-0 against Bosnia. They look good. They have the new manager Martinez, and everybody's kind of really anxious to see kind of how, what he's going to do, what formation is he going to go with, which starting lineup is he going to go with. I didn't dislike Fernando Santos. He gave us our 2016 Euro championship, and First Nations League in 2018 was won by Portugal with him, and those are like the first major trophies for the country, which is awesome. But I think that it's like anything, especially with like you see with kids having the same coaches, or even with like big clubs having the same managers over and over again, is that if you have them for too many years, you get tired of hearing the same voice. You get tired of hearing the same, the same critiques, the same advice, the same, it's almost like it stops getting mentally stimulating. You see it with like Real Madrid or whoever, Arsenal, Manchester United, like whoever it may be. They when I first started watching football, I'm like, dude, they go through managers like crazy. And they do. Then don't get me wrong. They definitely rotate them a little too quickly. The second the team starts struggling, the manager gets the blame, because you can't fire the players, right? Everybody likes the players. Everybody comes and pays to see the players. So the easiest thing to do is get rid of the manager, who usually has a smaller salary than the star players you should probably be blaming sometimes. But I also understand the concept of like, okay, if I'm the coach and I'm doing the same type of drills, I have the same philosophy, same concept, and I'm constantly doing the same thing, the players can get stagnant. They can get like tired of, oh, we've done this drill already. Oh, okay, I know this. Oh yeah, I've heard this before. It's almost like they say with your kids, like, how sometimes they stop listening to the parents because it's like they've heard us say the same thing over and over again. It's kind of the same thing with adults.
It's the same with my wife, bro. Like we went to this freaking what was he, homeopath, and he told her like, you have a ton of candida, you have a ton of gut dysbiosis, you need to do a gut protocol. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I've been telling you to do this since you stopped breastfeeding, which is like months and months and months. So she finally did it. And it resolved a ton of like problems, but she just won't listen. And dude, it got crazy where I keep telling her, you need to do a liver gallbladder flush, you need to do a few of them, and she won't listen. So one day I came home with a bunch of secondhand books. I go to the store and I got this book on iridology, and I told her, look, you can see like a person's irises. They can tell you if there's any pathology. And she said, oh my God, I actually have a little spot on my iris on the right side. So we looked at it, and it's exactly the liver. Exactly the liver is where she had the spot. And I'm like how many signs must God give you for you to listen to me? And she still hasn't done it, bro. It's just because you're exactly what you're saying. Like you're droning on and on the same things, and people just tune it out.
Well, like you said, yeah, it basically becomes like droning. Yeah, it
Yeah.
you know when you get the a exhaust on a car and it's like that droning or just like brrr, it's like that's what they hear. It's just
You
like, oh, I've
tune it
heard this.
out, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard this
Yeah.
sound before. Yeah, you know, and you almost need to hear it from an outside, uh, you know, person, somebody from that they don't hear that advice from, or you know, and it's sad because it's like you almost feel like, oh, do you not respect my opinion? You know, my
Exactly.
mother's like that. You know, where like
Exactly.
she'll come up to me, she's like, oh, I heard that blah blah blah. Somebody told me, you know, that this vitamin's good or this mineral is good or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I've been telling you that for like a year now. I'm like that you should get on that, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe I
Yeah.
should get, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like when I say it, it's like it's
Yeah,
not valid or valuable information. When somebody else says it, it's like all of a sudden you're entertaining the idea. So
it's frustrating, brother. It's frustrating, man.
it,
That's why I've kind of given up on trying to help friends and family because, like, you're wasting your breath and you get frustrated and then you become resentful and it's like a vicious circle. And you're better off giving them some space. And if they come to you, you can be like, okay, well, here's what you do. Easy, simple, you know?
yeah, I try to convince myself that it's still worth saying because I'm helping plant the seed, and then maybe I plant the seed and somebody else waters the seed. You know, like so I
Mm,
plant the seed. I'll tell my
I like
mother
that.
about like, okay, this vitamin, this mineral, whatever. So I'm planting the seed, but then she hears it from somebody else, and somebody's, you know, so they're helping and they're watering the seed, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
well, I
I
planted a
like
seed,
that.
and it's because I mentioned it. Now the comment, it wasn't maybe what changed their mind or made them entertain the idea wasn't specifically or wasn't exclusively just me, but it wasn't exclusively just that other person either. It was a
Yeah,
combination. It was, you
I
know,
like that.
so to me, it's really important to kind of not give up hope because I'm like, okay, even if it seems like they're resisting 100%, even if it seems like I'm not getting through to them at all, when they hear the same message and it's repeated similar to me or it's similar advice,
Yeah,
because I also gave that piece of advice, it's gonna maybe resent, you know, it's gonna absorb
maybe, yeah.
at a faster rate because it's like, okay, I've heard this before. Maybe there is something here. So it's hard. I mean, during
I
the
like
whole
that.
COVID thing, during all these things, like it's and throughout history, like throughout my history of like talking to people and trying to get through to people with certain messages, a lot of times and most of the time, especially if it's people in my personal life who aren't at the same intellectual level in regards to like unraveling the world and seeing through the illusion, like if they're not quite there or they're not even looking to take that journey, they're gonna meet you with resistance. They're gonna,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they're gonna push back, and a lot of times it's like, what am I doing? Like all I'm doing is stressing myself out because, you know, instead of just ignoring this conversation, I give into the conversation. Now I'm stuck being frustrated, and because I feel like they're, you know, they're resisting or you know, they're pushing back against something that, you know, without a doubt they have not researched, they don't know much about, or at least it doesn't seem that they know as much about the topic as you do, but yet
Mm,
they're so they're so quick to tell you you're wrong, you know, and that can be very frustrating. So yeah,
yeah.
without a doubt, it's you know, you have to constantly remind yourself like, okay, even though this is hard, even though this is difficult, like maybe I'm helping push them in a direction, and it's not just going to be my conversation with them. Maybe, you know, it's going to help because next time they watch a documentary or listen to a podcast or somebody else that they respect their opinion says something similar to me, it's all going to contribute. And, you know, that's kind of the way I look at it. We're all kind of
Yeah.
contributing, you know, so
Yeah, yeah. I like that now, I'm working with more clients since that tech job went away. So I like the fact that people really respect what I have to say. So when I say I would do this, and I'm not even telling them what to do. I say I would probably do this. And they're like, okay, gonna do that. They do it immediately. And I love that, bro. That when I see people enthusiastic about getting truly healthy, it's so inspirational. And it allows me to then take the foot off the pedal with my wife and just giving her space. Now she's on holiday with my daughter. They're away for a month. So when she comes back, I'm not even gonna belabor the point that she needs to do a few gallbladder flushes and get her liver and gallbladder kind of cleansed out. I'm just gonna like let her do whatever she wants, you know. And then when she does do it, she'll see that it was worth it, you know.
Well, it's funny because sometimes people in our personal lives, which you expect to be, or you would think would be the most supportive and appreciate your knowledge and the hard work you put into understanding what you understand, all the reading you do, all the researching you do, sometimes they seem to be the ones that it's the hardest to get through to.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you see it over and over. There's this, I had this guitarist on my show years ago, Mike Martins. He's actually from Ludlow. And he was in a band called All That Remains. And All That Remains was a very big band, especially at the height of their career. They had some huge hits. And actually, the singer of All That Remains, Phil, is actually a regular on the Tim Pool show. He's one of the guys, Phil, that's always there, always talks about, yeah, I'm the lead singer of a metal band. That was the band that Mike was in, and Mike, like I said, he's from my town, Ludlow, and I remember him telling me about how, because we were kind of talking about a similar type of topic about how when he tours, right, people recognize him and they go crazy because it's like, oh my God, it's Mike Martins, the guitarist of All That Remains. And when he does shows locally, people are like, it's just Mike. It's just like nobody cares. And he's like, you would expect like people from the area that he's from to be like super excited and be like, oh my God, like how awesome is it that you're from our little town and your band was a charting metal band, rock band, had some huge hits, and he's like, nobody cares, and I think it's one of those things where like other people see you, like for example, even from your perspective, like other people see you as the health expert. Your wife sees you as the husband, the used to be boyfriend, so it's like it's different. Like same thing with like me. Like my wife sees me as the guy she met, whatever, when we're in our 20s. So it's like she doesn't see me as like, oh, you're the well-read, I was the charming guy who was trying to get her to, give me her number. I was, so it's just like it's different. And then so people who listen to my podcast and reach out, listeners, and it's funny because sometimes we interact on social media or whatever, and it seems like they respect my opinion, and I'm just like, it's hard for me to understand why. But then I have to remind, I'm like, oh, they only know me as the guy who interviews really smart people like yourself.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a different type of relationship, so
Yeah.
that's a part of it too, like it's, people listen to your show, people hear how much research you've done and your expertise, and it's like, oh my God, like I respect this guy's opinion. But your wife, it's like, oh, this is my husband, Christian, like we just, so
No, she does respect. I have to be, we have to be fair as well. I'm sure our wives, both of our wives, really do respect, because I mean, there's a reason why they picked us out of all the other bros, So they do respect our opinion, and it's just, I personally, myself, I have a tendency to constantly be like da in your ear, like, and anytime I like, even like today, I was reading some stuff. I got these thick books that can kill a human, or a livestock, horse. They're thick books on naturopathic medicine, natural medicine. So I'm reading them, and I like, it's like a pastime for me, and I'll just randomly like tell my wife, even like we might be on the phone on Telegram catching up, what she's doing on their holiday, and I'm like, oh, did you know this, and I'm thinking to myself, she doesn't give a shit. Like, why am I telling her like this specific mechanism with this specific vitamin in this specific instance? Like people don't actually care most of the time. They only, I've noticed people care when it's something specific to them. Like for example, like I was talking to a friend that had a lot of gut stuff. So as soon as I started telling him like mechanisms of like what parasites can do, what candida can do, like what herbs are good for candida, how to know is something more likely a parasite, and etc. Like people are all ears in that case. So if it's something that pertains to them at that specific moment in time, they're definitely much more receptive. But if it's just something random that you're interested in, like for example, like if you start talking to me about basketball or something right now, and I'm like, bro, right now I'm all into the detoxing and the gut health and the research. Like I honestly, I will entertain your basketball story, and I see you're passionate about it, but if I care about you. But otherwise I'll be like, okay, just waiting for my turn to speak now.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That's actually how I would I loved meeting people when I was single and going out a lot, and I was notorious for going out and just like I would always make friends, and everywhere I go, I'd make friends, and I would meet people, and that's how one was like
Mm.
a true intriguement in what other people were passionate about. But I also knew that like no matter how quiet somebody was or how hard it was to break the ice, if I could just find out what was that thing they really liked and get them talking about that, I knew I could get them to open up, right? Because it's like you meet some people that are so quiet and you can't figure them out, and you're like trying to be like, wow, this person's not very. Then you find out that one thing that they love. Okay, maybe they're a gamer, maybe they're whatever, maybe they're really into chess, maybe they're really into painting or hikes or hunting, whatever it may be, and you get them talking about that, and all of a sudden, they're talking as much as we are, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating because it's like a lot of times it's like we all have that thing where it's like you get me to start talking about something that I'm passionate about, and I'll just I'll go off, and the thing is, I'm much like yourself. I'm into a lot of different things, so I feel like I'm a chameleon. Like I can kind of blend in with a lot of different
Yeah.
groups because it's like, oh, okay, you're not into history, but we can talk music, or you're not into music, but we can talk weightlifting or training, or you're not into that, but you're into sports, so let's talk sports. Whatever it may be, and but you get somebody to talk about what they're passionate about, it's almost like it's contagious, right? Like you end up being passionate about it because it's like, wow, this person's really into it, and then you end up, kind of getting excited about it too, and intrigued with it. Like, oh my god, there's more details and to this, and it's much deeper than I thought, and there's more levels to it. So, I even with being around kids, right? Like with coaching, like I talk to a lot of other coaches who coach soccer, and it's like I always say, I'm like those parents who might know the game or maybe play the game at a high level, but they don't seem excited about it, and it's like to me it's exciting to be around somebody who is hyping you up. It's no different than you playing sports yourself, and
Yeah.
or going to the gym and having a training partner who's like high energy, ready to go, gets you amped up. It's kind of it's contagious. So, and this goes into the whole like energy thing, right? You can't really quantify, you can't really describe what exactly it is that you're feeding off, but you're feeding off some energy, you're sharing some energy, so and it's the same thing with like humor, right? I have friends that like are super silly. Like I have a couple of friends that like they're every time we're together we're busting balls, we're making fun of each other, whatever, we're laughing all the time. And the second we get together, it's like we're right into that mood where we're like joking and laughing, and it's almost again like it's one of those things. It's like that there's an energy to that friend, or those friends that are funny that you just you're attracted to. It's like, oh, every time I'm
Yeah.
around them, we're laughing, we're giggling. They put out a certain type of vibe and energy. And I think as you get older, the ones who put out the negative energy, the ones who are always complaining or whatever, or always seem unmotivated, those are the ones you end up having to like filter out because you're like, okay, when I'm young and I have the time and energy to deal with these type of friends, that's great. But as you get older, it becomes much harder because now I have
Yeah.
limited time. I have like many other people that depend on me and need me at my best, and I can't have too many people around me that I have to bring up with me. So
Mm.
it's this is all like a part of life, the juggling and the journey. And but before I do too much talking on this show, because you are the guest on this episode,
We're
um,
recording, are we?
yeah, why not? That's all. Unless you want, if you think your wife's going to listen to this, and you want, I could cut out the beginning.
No, I mean I didn't say anything negative per se.
Per
Like
se, I like how you
I,
say per se. Per,
I mean, like it's the truth, and we both are aware of the truth.
yeah.
Therefore, you know,
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong.
it's all
You know
good.
what? And I'm sure there's probably going to be examples that our wives can give us of us doing the same thing, right?
Oh,
Like
dude, of course,
similar
of
things.
course.
But for
Like, come
so
on, the guys are so much worse than women in so many respects that it's ridiculous. Like, I gotta tell you, I was a complete trying to find a not non naughty word POS before I met my wife, bro. I met her when I was just about to hit the age of 30, and up until that point, I was just a complete just like ah waster. I guess is a good word in Ireland. They use that word. So definitely meeting her was one of the best, well, the best thing that happened to me, because I turned into a much better version of myself. So now she can listen to the episode and everything will be dandy.
You just made up for everything
I
else.
just made up for everything. Boom, easy. I'm off the hook.
I'm off the hook. But you scratched the surface a little bit about your own personal journey and how now you're kind of out of the IT world and you're going into this other life journey and chapter. For people listening, and I was also a recent guest on your show, so please let people know about that project, all your upcoming projects, and how maybe a little bit of your own personal journey. How did because I think these type of stories are inspiring, because some people are afraid to take that leap and take that and do something that's a little bit more spontaneous. But yeah, let people know about a little bit of your background and your journey to what led you to where you are now, and the path that you're taking now.
Yeah, well, thanks, bro. Yeah, I guess I've always been interested in health in some way, shape, or form, and it was about 4 or 5 years that I really started getting heavily into it. And one of the biggest sort of catalysts for that is just seeing my people in my family just really, really succumbing to various health issues. My granny, she had, I'm not even sure how many strokes, like what were all of them real strokes, but she had at least 3 or 4 strokes. And just seeing her deteriorate the last years of her life was very painful to watch. Seeing my mother's health sort of deteriorate, like she had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, for 13 years. She was diagnosed and nothing was done to help her. And as soon as I got qualified as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner back in 2019, I I immediately ordered a stool pathogen test for her, because I already suspected exactly the bacteria that she had that was causing her these issues. Um, and I was correct. And within 8 months, I took her from, she was having pain and headaches after every meal, to, after 8 months on my protocols, diet supplementation and some lifestyle stuff, she went from pain and headaches with every meal, like literal, she would like be writhing in pain, holding on to her stomach and stuff. She went to, when COVID hit later on, she would be eating raw garlic to boost her immune system. And she was like, I'm eating raw garlic here and it's no problem for me right now. Excuse me. So yeah, so I really about 2017, 18, I set out to understand whether I'm gonna succumb to my family history's health problems. Like, we have atherosclerosis, we have depression in the family, and stroke and stuff like that. And I wanted to see, is it just genetic? Is it, are we doomed to like experience this, or is it modifiable? Are these modifiable risks? They talk about epigenetics, or how genetics loads the gun, but your environment pulls the trigger. So I started learning about the microbiota and neurotransmitters and nutrients, and how nutrients can affect basically your neurochemistry or your mood and everything else. Because literally, when you look at what a neurotransmitter is, like for example, um, uh, um, dopamine, that's made from an amino acid, tyrosine. There's a phenylalanine becomes tyrosine, becomes L-dopa, becomes dopamine. So the beginning part here is an amino acid that comes from the meat, the food that you eat, the protein that you eat. Same with serotonin. That's tryptophan, and that becomes 5-hydroxytryptophan, and you need cofactors along these pathways to create these things. Vitamin B6, you need copper for dopamine, you need vitamin C, and then you need to break these things down with enzymes. These enzymes are dependent on again, nutrients, and the enzymes themselves are, made of amino acids. So uh the nutrition plays a huge role in not just our physical health, but our psychiatric, or rather mental health. Let's just say it. Let's stay away from those certain terms. Um so that was a quite a fascinating journey, and I'm not saying like I'm an expert or any of these things. I'm like a student for life, but that's how kind of I got here. And I've been on your podcast before, and we talked about my book on autism. In 2020 I published a book on autism because that was, so again, someone in my family was affected. So I spent over a year researching and writing this book to basically reach more parents, try to help more folks. And since then I've had a child, I've become a dad. So I did a lot of research since I last was on your podcast. I did a ton of research on pregnancy preparation, pregnancy recovery, this kind of antenatal period, neonatal period. What things can perturb the the child's health. And I've done a lot of research there. And then my last project is I just published a course on all about detoxification, all about reducing toxic exposure, supporting your body's innate detoxification system, and shedding your existing load of toxins, which all of us really have for sure, to varying degrees. So that's kind of a little bit where I'm at now. I'm still kind of adding bits and pieces to the detox course, but I've begun planning the next one. It will be all about the gut. I think that's another area people like really need a lot of help in. And then after that, it will be, I have an idea for a course on pregnancy preparation and recovery, because that's another area where people are really struggling. If you look at what kind of supplements doctors are putting moms to be, it's just the most. And like, I remember when my sister was pregnant with her last kid, I asked her, can you send me like the prenatal vitamin you're using? And she sent me the ingredients and the label, and it said number one pediatrician recommended. And then when I looked at what the number one pediatrician recommended multivitamin for kids was, like that Flintstone vitamin, and you look at the ingredients with artificial colors and calcium carbonate and zinc oxide, like the worst, poorly, the least bioavailable forms of these nutrients. And like I'm just sickened to my core with what people are being told to do by quote unquote practitioners that are supposed to have their best interest at heart, and it's their job to get people healthy and stuff like that. And the people that are coming to me now as clients, as prospective clients, like just over like today and yesterday, I was talking to some ladies in the States, and they're telling me like they're both of them were like suffering for ages with gut stuff. And I asked, have you ever done a stool pathogen screening, like a poop test for pathogens, for bacteria, parasites? Never. And I'm like, so you've been going to these doctors, you have a gastroenterologist, and they've never done any deeper testing other than like your standard fecal calprotectants and like some blood tests, and they just want to like shove things up you, like do colonoscopies and do biopsies and stuff like that. But they seem to never, they're skirting around like the real issues. Like, hey, you know what, gut problems, a lot of them are being caused by pathogens. So my part of my mission is to help educate people about all of these things. So the gut, the fact that so much toxic exposure over the past decades that we've all accumulated is causing us a lot of health problems, and this is causing women to have suboptimal health during pregnancy. That's causing their children to be born suboptimally healthy, and that's contributing to all of the childhood major conditions and illnesses and diseases. And that is also contributing to all the other diseases and conditions that people are developing as they age into adulthood and to middle age and so on.
Yeah. Did you happen to listen to the new RFK episode on Joe Rogan?
No.
He was just on there on Thursday or Friday, and amazing episode. I can't tell you how happy I am that he was on there for a long time. I've heard Rogan over and over again kind of do what most people, the average person who's uninformed, do, and that's label people who question the safetyness and effectiveness of vaccines as a conspiracy theorist or just pseudoscience or crazy or whatever. And to have somebody on like Robert Kennedy Jr., who really knows the history of it, knows the lack of science, knows all the ins and outs of all of it, everything from like the aluminum and, the Mirasol story and all that stuff, and how, they started adding this stuff because, they say it's a preservative, but really they started adding it because it's toxic and it would get a immune response from your system, which made it look like the vaccine is giving you this immune response, but it's because there's these additives, these toxic additives in there. And he just threw to have like because he was on for 3 hours, probably a good 2 hours. The first 2 hours was all about vaccines, and to see how, and this kind of is a perfect example of what we're discussing before in regards to just slowly planting the seed with people. Because with Rogan, it's like he seemed like he was impossible to reach in regards to this topic and opening his mind to this topic, and little by little people around him were planting the seed, and then COVID planted the seed, and he started thinking like, okay, maybe there's something more to this. Maybe the same way that they're lie to us about these prescription drugs or these pharmaceutical drugs or this pharmaceutical product, maybe they're lying about all of them, and it's just to think how far we've come, and all of a sudden now you have one of the best research, best known anti-vaxxer. It would be, just for a lack of a better term, anti-vaxxer, somebody who questions vaccine science, to be on the Rogan show, the biggest show on earth, and then spend 2 hours uninterrupted explaining how we got here and all the lack of science and all the people he's debated or attempted to debate and all these things. It's come a long way. And one thing that he does know, Robert Kennedy Jr., is about just toxins and pollution and all these other things, because really that's where he started. He started with suing chemical companies and all this stuff. And really, once you do some research and you learn about vaccines, it's like, okay, it's kind of similar. The same way that chemicals in our foods or in our our products that we're buying, in our water, can have a negative effect on us. Vaccines are the same thing. It's the same type of idea where those same or similar chemicals are having a negative effect on people. I mean, think about lead, for example. It was in our fuel. It was in our paint. It was all over. And now we know it's like super toxic. Removing lead from paint and from fuel, like there's actual studies that show that it's improved like people's IQ. In some cases, it's lowered people's likelihood to end up in prison. Like it had this hugely negative effect on society, and yet like we just looked at it as like it was harmless, So I think people are becoming much more aware of like not all our medical issues and diseases and stuff like that is just something you can't control. I think there are some things that you're probably born with, and maybe it's the luck of the draw, like where you're just born unhealthy or less healthy. But there's also a lot of things we can't control in regards to not just dietary but our environment, and that is a neglected part of health that people don't discuss enough. It's like when you think like, okay, let me listen to a podcast about health, right? Like a lot of times it's nutrition, it's dietary, it's relating to exercise, but how often is it relating to like what chemicals are you surrounded by in your house, or what chemicals are in the cosmetic products you're taking or using, like what chemicals are in the sunscreen that you're putting on your skin and being absorbed in your body. So that is a aspect of health that I think we don't talk enough about. I had this guy, I can't remember his name, but something Allen. He wrote the book Poisoned, and he was a attorney who moved in, like he was actually a mafia attorney in Florida, and was making all this money and getting this new office, and all of a sudden he moves into his new office and he gets super sick. It's so sick that they end up having to put him in like some cabin made of all like organic, like natural things in the woods, and he was there for like a couple years just to get his health back to normal. And all this time he's trying to figure out like, well, what is causing this, and come to find out it was like some of the chemicals that were in his new office that he was having this reaction to. And he thought he was poisoned because he was locking up mobsters. So they thought that it was somebody that he put in prison that poisoned him, when really he was poisoned by his environment. So that's why the stuff that you talk about is so important.
Bro, this is so, like, right now in 2023, I honestly, from the research I did for my course, I honestly believe that most people's health problems are stemming from just toxic exposure that's gone far enough where the body's own antioxidant defense system has been overwhelmed. And so very briefly, this is how it works. So you let's say you have a healthy individual here. There could be a 2-year-old, it could be a 20 or 40-year-old. And let's assume good nutritional status, which is another piece of the puzzle, which most people actually do not even have. But assuming good nutritional status, let's say now you have 10 to 20 minuscule toxic exposures every day. So let's say something from your shampoo, phthalates, from the plastics you use in the car. You have your you have your flame retardants in your car seat, and all there's flame retardants in your couch, in your car, in many mattresses, right? So you have those. You have now, if you drive in traffic, you're getting diesel exhaust particles, which are one of the most toxic things actually from air pollution, right? Diesel exhaust particles, they can actually hurt specific immune system cells. So they have a direct immunotoxic effect on the body, and certain toxins have a direct immunotoxic effect. So what that can do is that can impair your immune system. It can kind of get it out of whack, out of balance slightly. And that when you have slight disbalance, it can cause things over time, like multiple chemical sensitivities. It can cause autoimmune reactions. If you have like these toxins in the food, like pesticides, herbicides, some of these artificial fertilizers can be quite toxic, the ammonia based ones. So if you're not eating specifically organic food, if you're not using reverse osmosis or water distillation for your water filtration, you're getting a lot of stuff in the gut. And now these toxins are directly damaging your gut cells and your gut microbiota. When you have a compromised microbiota, that increases the chance of increased intestinal permeability, or leaky gut as it's known. That allows more of these toxins to now get into your bloodstream unimpeded, and that can cause, again, immune system dysregulation, inflammation, autoimmune reactions. Don't forget, you're driving in traffic every day. If you're in a big city, you're breathing in this invisible, it's invisible, but you're breathing it in, and it's going into your lungs, and now you're entering your systemic circulation. And let's assume in our example you have perfect nutritional status. Now what your body is doing is it's using amino acids, vitamins, and minerals to detoxify these compounds, and it will do a damn good job for a long time. But at a certain point in time, if you don't keep up, let's say if you don't take vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that are needed to support these detoxification pathways, and your energy production system, because that's imperative to be working well. Because if you can't produce energy well, obviously you can't do anything. It's like the currency of the body. So you need energy and nutrients to constantly detoxify, because you're constantly detoxifying these things, right? And then what can happen is these tiny minuscule exposures every day, 10 20 of different things, again, air, water, food products, touching plastics, etc., they also have synergistic effects, which are very unpredictable, because almost no research has been done on the synergistic effect of toxins. It's like 1 + 1 + 1 won't equal 3, it might equal 10 or 25 with these toxins. It's like if you're fighting against one guy, it's 1-on-1. If you're fighting against 3 guys, your chances are not 3 times lower. They're a hell of a lot lower of winning that fight. So what happens is your body will continue to use the food that's coming in to build detoxification enzymes and so on. But now what's at a cost of what? At a cost of maybe just keeping you healthy otherwise, right? So it's prioritizing the nutrients to defend you, like for your immune system, to defend you from toxins, to detoxify things. But then you might start aging faster. You might start having less energy. You might have brain fog. So there is always a cost. So people, they're like, oh, I've been a car mechanic for 10 years, 20 years. I don't feel it. What toxins are you talking about? What heavy metals? No, I don't even use gloves when I'm working on the engines, and coming home with dirty, grimy, greasy hands. Well, a lot of that's getting absorbed. You're absorbing a lot of that. And but I don't feel anything. You don't feel anything because you're strong and healthy. Your body's doing everything it can until that day where the straw that breaks the camel's back occurs. At that point, you tip over into like a state of known as oxidative stress, and that's when things start to break down. And things break down in the body gradually and slowly. The body's constantly trying to repair things, so you won't necessarily feel it all in one go. You have to have very serious acute toxicity. Like, let's say you work as a like you work in agriculture or something like that, and you get acute pesticide toxicity or something like that. There are documented cases of that, and the effects are very deleterious. But they've also studied like folks that work on farms that apply glyphosate or pesticides like organophosphates. They've studied them, and they, for example, they might, in some cases, they might have higher rates of depression. They might have reduced reaction times. They might have reduced performance on cognitive tests. Any number of things that certain folks that are I can't remember all the examples now, but certain folks that say, for example, police officers that work in traffic, they had certain higher incidences, I think, of cardiovascular disease. So being in an environment where there's a lot of toxicity can actually predispose you. When I was on Charlie Robinson's podcast, I was telling him about they did a study in the 90s in Phoenix, and there was folks living in Phoenix had a 50% higher mortality with cardiovascular outcomes than folks living in smaller cities. So you being exposed to these things is a massive detriment to your body. And the only thing that will sort of keep you healthy long term is to either, well, no, not either. There's 3 things you got to do. You have to reduce the toxic exposures that are within your control as much as possible. So the products you buy, the water, the food, and again, if you can move away from a big city, if you are in a big city, the middle of a big city, that's probably something you want to invest in. And then you want to support your detoxification. This is the biggest one I think people actually forget. I know lots of people that are doing organic. They don't buy plastic stuff. Their house, there is pretty spick and span in terms of the products they buy. They have a reverse osmosis system, but for example, they don't eat enough protein. They don't take B vitamins. They don't take minerals, and these things are imperative to keep getting in your diet, because this just as well as me, Ricky. The food nowadays, the soils are very depleted. The food nowadays is very depleted. So we are not getting as much nutrition from the food as back in the day. The fruits and the veg, especially the conventionally grown fruit and veg, they are grown with like they accumulate a lot of water. They look massive. They look gorgeous, but it's water, sugar, fructose, glucose. But where are the minerals? Where are the vitamins? Yes, there's some vitamin C and stuff, but the minerals, the amino acids, these are super imperative for our detoxification system. Zinc, um, iron, calcium, magnesium, selenium, manganese, and the amino acids. You need to get glycine, cysteine, taurine, and a bunch of other things. And without these coming in on a constant basis, it's like the hole in your boat is too big for the bucket that you're trying to throw stuff out, so eventually your boat is going to fill up. So that's the second pillar that I believe most people are still not well informed enough. That's why I'm talking about it. That's why I'm glad we can have these conversations and inform more people about it. And then the third one is actually, you also need to uh, get rid of the current body burden of toxins that you have, because we all do. A lot of these toxins, even from the 70s, when they banned DDT and a bunch of organochlorine pesticides, these and a number of other things like flame retardants, PBDEs, polybrominated diphenyl ethers, phthalates. These are lipophilic fat. They have an affinity for fatty tissues, and they accumulate in our fatty tissues, not just our fat cells, but our myelin, the protective sheath in our nervous system cells, brain cells, just fatty tissue, uh, including like parts of the brain and the nervous system. So these are a lot of these toxins, persistent organic pollutants as they're called, are very difficult to make water soluble, even by our own detoxification enzymes. So one of the best things I can recommend for people is to either invest into a decent quality sauna, far infrared, near infrared, whatever the heck you can afford, whatever the heck you can build. Or what I also recommend to folks is, if you go on Amazon, you can order 3 or 4 of those they're infrared light bulbs. They're yay big. They're $15-20, and you just get some lamp fixtures that can kind of are sturdy enough so they don't fall on you and burn you or something like that. And you want to position these, make a makeshift mini sauna, and they work well. Like, even for me, one of these gets me sweating, right? So if you can get 2 or 3 or 4 of these, position them in a corner of your house, and start getting into the habit of sweating on a daily basis, or at least 2-3 times a week for at least 20-30 minutes. This is super important, because a lot of these lipophilic, as I said, persistent organic pollutants, they're inside our fatty tissues, and there's no way they're getting out. There's 2 ways they're getting out. If you sweat them out, they've done studies where people sweating, they can detect these toxins in the sweat, but not in the blood and the urine. And very briefly, if something is in the urine or in the blood, it's indicative of very acute exposure. But if it's only if it's only detectable in the sweat, it's very much indicative that that is an accumulated thing, that it's been there for a while, that you're pushing out, right? So the other way, actually, to mobilize these toxins is, if you, let's say, have 10-15 pounds of extra fat on the body, if you go on let's say on a fast or a hypocaloric, low calorie diet, and you start losing weight very fast, you will actually, because you're kind of melting these fat cells, you're actually going to mobilize these toxins. But this is incredibly dangerous, because most people do not have the antioxidant capacity to actually deal with, because what happens is, let's say you have a bunch of fat in your visceral area, your abdominal, and you start doing, let's say you go on a 7-day fast. This fat starts to melt, it's mobilized for energy, and all the toxins starts getting mobilized. They enter into the bloodstream, and what the body can neutralize and detoxify and excrete, it will. But what it can't will get jammed in your kidneys, in your like your vital organs, including your brain. So this is what I eventually, maybe next year, I will have time to do a mini 2-3 hour course on how to lose weight safely, because that's another badly needed thing, especially in the States and Western Europe. But the most important thing people need to know is the best way to lose weight is to start detoxing first and to support your detoxification systems, because once that weight starts coming off, all of those toxins that you have accumulated are going to wreak absolute havoc on your metabolism, unless you have the strategy to bind them and excrete them before they can do that damage.
Now, for your detox program, one, why did you make this specifically the focus of like a course or program? And then two, the follow-up question with that would be, who is the ideal person for this type of workshop, this type of a program, and that you're kind of trying to help?
Actually, I'll answer the second question. So there, at the start of the course, I have a module how to navigate the course, and there's several different sort of personas that it's aimed at. So if you are a parent or a parent to be, because you want to make sure that your young kid with an undeveloped detoxification system does not get hit with a bunch of different toxins. If you have a child with autism or ADHD or some other condition, it's also important, or any young child, if you have a young child, because we know that toxins are implicated in these things. If you have a health condition of any kind, because most toxins are implicated in most health conditions, or rather I should say toxins are implicated in most health conditions to an extent, that if you want to live, if you are healthy now, but you want to continue to be healthy and thriving for a long time, this is also important. So that's another person that it's aimed at. And then if you're trying to get pregnant, and then there was one more that I have not added yet, but if you're someone that gets a lot of occupational exposure to toxins, that's another person that would benefit from it. And the reason I decided to do this course is, initially it was just going to be a couple of hours on just how to do the liver gallbladder flush, and it was going to be like something I can share with my clients, something that we can basically we have as a resource that clients can refer to. But then I was like, well, we need to, but like most of my clients, the people that come to work with me usually have some type of health issues, brain fog, energy issues, a lot of gut stuff. And when I run lab tests on these folks, anytime we run something that has indicators for issues with detoxification or toxic exposure, these markers are usually elevated, right? So for example, the glutathione antioxidant, very often when I run the organic acids test on folks, that's elevated, indicating that glutathione is deficient or it's low. So I know that a big part of working with someone is educating them on how to eat better, how to have better nutrition in terms of supplementation, but also how to clean up their lifestyle and their home from the toxins. If you don't do that, you will never, just like you can never out train a crappy diet, you will never out detox or out supplement a lifestyle if you're using like 10-15 different personal care products. If you're driving in traffic with your window down, or if you're cycling for pleasure in traffic, there's a lot of little bits and pieces that people need to learn. So I really feel like there's a lot of things I was kept having to repeat myself with people. So now, instead of when I feel like someone, let's say I start working with someone and they're not doing the organic diet thing, I'm like, oh God, do I have to start explaining the organic, why it's so important every time? So now I just point them to that module in the course, like, please watch this, because I shared this with all of my clients, this course. So I was like, please watch this. And then when we do when we do our sort of initial consultation, I ask a lot of questions, and people, I'll ask them, what kind of water do you drink? Oh, I buy like, water from the store, or I have a Brita jug, I don't know if you have them in the States, Brita jug, or some type of countertop jug. And I'm like, okay, please watch the module on air or water purification. Then I asked them, do you have a HEPA air filter anywhere in the house? No. Okay, please watch the module on how to clean up your indoor air quality, and get yourself a couple of HEPA air purifiers for your bedroom, for your main living space, be that your living room or your office, or if you work in an office, get one for your office. So that was kind of the premise, and it just I every time I start a project that is gonna be like, oh, I'll do like 2-3 hours of this and then publish it, and it's gonna be like a MVP, minimal viable product, it always turns into this monster thing. Like this course at the moment is 13 hours, and I'm planning to add more to the course, because it's just so much to know. And I've even now I've decided that every person that gets the course, they'll get a 45-minute consultation with me, complimentary, to discuss either their health goals or to help them navigate the course a little bit better to suit their purposes. We could do a little bit of lifestyle, diet, supplementation analysis, and I can give them some tips. But that was kind of the reason why the biggest reason I did this, bro, is because I feel like it's badly needed. Like, I cannot tell you how many friends here, like my wife's, I remember this couple with 2 kids. They're my wife's friends from Ireland. They were here a couple of months ago because, it's a tourist destination, Portugal, south of Portugal. So they were here on holiday, and we went to see their kids. It's 5 p.m. We went to see them, and I saw their kids 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and their kids looked wrecked. I'm like, what is wrong with these kids, guys? So then, just kind of, they started telling us, oh, they were on like this hop on, hop off bus tour. Okay, so they were breathing toxic diesel exhaust fucking particles for 2-3 hours. Oh, then they were eating like the buffet at the restaurant with the cheapest, lowest quality food. God knows what kind of water they were drinking, probably out of plastic bottles that were like in the heat, God knows how long. Then they were eating ice cream. Then they were eating like a white bread toasted sandwich. Then like some crappy fruit juices. God knows they were probably using just the sunscreen that you buy in those stores here that are everywhere. So they're doing a number of things, and then at the end of the day, they're like, oh, the kids are tired because it's hot or whatever. Is that it, or is it because your kids have been getting poisoned by a number of different things throughout the day? So I'm seeing people, and I'm going to like friends' houses here, and like I see people they might have 2 cars, bro. They might have like a €500,000 house, and they're buying the cheapest, and I mean the cheapest garbage from the cheapest supermarket. We're talking like crappy biscuits with sunflower oil or canola, and just like the most disgusting stuff. And like the folks going to the gym every morning, 6 days a week, and they're like, oh, I can't lose weight, and they're like going every hour working every day for an hour working with trainers, and they can't lose weight. Well, all of these things are because because of you just eating poison and poisoning yourself constantly. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen. I can tell you, I can count on one hand the people where we go here, where we live in the community that we know, where we go to a couple's house or like a family's house, and we can say, okay, well, these guys are doing everything right. They're buying organic pastured food. They know their local farmers. They clearly are filtering their water well. They have a HEPA air filter, etc., etc. There's so few people. Most people are making fundamental mistakes that are accumulating daily, and over years, decades, and over a lifetime, they're going to cost them dearly. And I want to help prevent that as much as I can help it, basically.
And that's the problem with trying to get people to acknowledge all these little life changes that are important, because at the time it doesn't seem important because it doesn't have any negative, or it doesn't seem to have a negative effect on you right now. And we've talked about this in the past, I'm sure, when I was on your show, or last time you were on my show. You don't just wake up and all of a sudden you're sick. It's like we constantly discuss, it's like little bit of life choices are pushing you in the direction of sick, little by little, and like you said, it could start off with just, what are you breathing in, quality of water, not caring what type of quality of food you're eating. I'm just eating snacks, made of artificial colors and flavors and all this stuff, and cheap vegetable oils, or I'm just buying the cheapest dressing, whatever it may be. I have friends of mine. I remember, I'm like you, where I'm constantly giving the same advice over and over again. And like, I love the fact that I've done a lot of podcasts on these topics, and it's like, okay, are you doing the keto diet? Here's a couple episodes I've done with Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. Here's a couple episodes I've done with Dr. Thomas Seyfried. Oh, you want to learn about this or that? Like, here's the episode I've done. It does make it a little easier. If not, then you feel like you're just constantly repeating the same stuff over and over again. The worst part is when you're repeating the same stuff over and over again to the same people, because it's like, you already asked me this question, I've already answered it, and now you want me to like explain it again. But I have so many friends that are similar to like you mentioned, people who have these giant houses or expensive cars, and you go to their house and they're buying the cheapest food, and it's just like, I don't get it. Like, you can replace the house, you can replace the car. If these things fall apart, you can replace it. You can't replace your body if it falls apart. You're stuck with it. So why aren't you taking care of your body as well as you're taking care of this beautifully cut lawn, or this a car that needs really expensive oil or fluid, whatever it may be? To me, it's crazy. But again, it's hard to get people to take these little choices seriously when they don't see a immediate negative impact. But little by little, like you said, you can only handle all these bad life decisions for so long until eventually it does kick you in the ass. And that's why you see people at like a certain age, all of a sudden they're falling apart, or at a certain age, all of a sudden they're sick. It's like, it wasn't all of a sudden. It was because of poor life decisions. And I'm a big believer of sweating. I love the heat. We're one of the few crazy people that will go down to Florida in the middle of July, because I don't care how hot it is. One, it's cheap to go down there around then, and two, my wife has family down there, and both of our works jobs end up having time off around then, so we can both kind of take time off at the same time, and it's just convenient. And I don't mind. Like, people are like, you're crazy, what are you doing going down to Florida in July? I'm like, I don't mind the heat. I love the heat. There's something about sweating and being in the scorching sun that makes me feel good, and a lot of it's detoxing. We were just doing a show of the Union of the Unwanted recently with Joel Salatin, who has been on this my show before a long time ago, also been on the Rogan podcast a while ago, and he's I love him. Awesome guy. And he said this on the Union of the Unwanted, the last Union of the Unwanted. He's like, the strongest detoxing is sweating. It's like nothing will detox you faster. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why we feel good when we get a workout where we're all sweaty. That's exactly why we feel good when you're out in the sun in a really hot climate and you're sweating. That's why we feel good when we get a workout. That's why we feel good when we're in a sauna. That's why, like, all these things have one thing in common. It's like you're sweating, you're opening up your pores, you're detoxing. I mean, when you're hungover and you get a workout or you go play sports and you sweat, you're like, oh my God, I feel better. And it's because you detoxed. And, but, as important as it is to emphasize, detoxing and how we all need to do it. And we all need to, like you said, sweat a couple times a week. Hopefully you can sweat every day like I do. If you can't, at least try to consciously think about trying to do it a couple times a week. But we also have to talk about why is detoxing so crucial. And that's because we're constantly surrounded by things and inhaling things that require us detoxing to deal with. And so the environmental piece of the puzzle is a neglected one, and that's why I love the fact that you're talking about it. You could eat healthy, and you could do exercise, and you'd be like, why do I still feel like I'm low energy or don't feel as good as I could be? And like you said, it could be all these other crucial things. And my father-in-law, he delivers fuel to gas stations. And I remember when I first started dating my wife, we were driving by a gas station, and she's like, "Oh, there's my dad, dropping off, delivering gas." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's stop by and say hi." So we pulled over and we're talking to him, and I'm like, I could smell the fuel because he has he's literally filling up the gas station as we speak, and I'm just like, Greg, I'm like, how the hell do you handle the smell? And he looks at me, he's like, I haven't smelled that the smell of fuel in like 20 years, and it's like, and it's just, I'm like. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, imagine the harm that he's doing to himself. And yet he doesn't even like his brain, kind of like we started off this podcast talking about like, it's a drone. I'm like, it's the same thing with the smell. Like to your brain, that smell is just a drone. That's like, oh, I've smelled this before. I'm just going to ignore it now. I don't need to keep sending you signals. That's what they say about certain smells. Is same thing with like if you work at for a garbage company, a trash company, you're picking up trash, same thing. Like you stop smelling things because eventually your brain's like, okay, I don't need to keep sending these signals because I'm getting, I've already given you the signal a bunch and you're ignoring it. So
you're doing nothing.
Yeah, you do nothing about it. So why keep sending it to you? But it's stuff like that. I think about, I work construction and we don't do a whole lot of blacktop work, but people who do asphalt every day. Like sometimes when we do a little bit of asphalt work, I'm like, these poor guys who pave every single day, and you're literally breathing in, just hot oils and chemicals and, all that steam's going up and you're smelling it every single day. There's no way that it's not having some type of negative impact on you. So it is one of those things where people are becoming a little bit more conscious of it. You're hearing people talk about, not using plastic bottles. You're hearing, but I do think like, probably like lead and all, asbestos and all these other things that for a while were looked at as like harmless and eventually shown to do harm. There's probably some chemicals we're exposed to right now that we're going to see similar issues.
Sure. Like even all of these safer plastics like polyethylene and polypropylene. First of all, polypropylene, those like I was saying before, like I have these totes here, storage totes that are polypropylene, which is better than PVC, but they still have flame retardants in them. And these are phthalates are also used in. First of all, phthalates are used in a lot of stuff like plastic bags as well, and these are they're readily come off, so they're used to make plastics pliable. Like we have a lot of children's toys here, which I hate, obviously, having any plastics in the house, but they easily sort of come off of the plastic, and then the dust in the house carries them around, so we're getting like, for example, supplement bottles, okay, this is what high density polyethylene, but like God knows, all of these microplastics that are ending up in the oceans, they're coming from polyester, clothes, low density polyethylene most likely, and it's coming back all around, from the food chain. So we have to, again, like we have to take daily measures. And I'm not saying you have to sweat every day, but there's certain things you can do. Some people might be more inclined to do like an occasional enema, or like some folks that are having particular health problems, they might want to do coffee enemas like on the regular, like every day for months on end to get that thing. Other people may want to go for a colonic. Some folks, if you have a lot of occupational exposure, you may want to go to like a naturopath or a health consultant and like do a specific heavy hardcore protocol to detoxify yourself, especially if you're like a car mechanic or like heavy duty machinery mechanic or something like that. You definitely want to do something where for like a month or 3 months, you're doing specific things regularly. They've done studies where folks with like, I think it was autoimmune type issues, they did like a month-long protocol of like sauna every day, like I think it was rebounders, specific herbs, specific minerals, vitamins, specific diet, and like people were surveyed at the end in terms of symptomatology and stuff, and like geez, I can't remember what the stats were. It was like something like 80% reported feeling significantly better from seemingly intractable autoimmune sort of stuff. So I think a lot of people that just generally, if you're like someone that's like in their mid 30s or maybe mid 40s or something like that, or early 50s, and you're just like, oh, I don't feel great. I have kind of low energy, but it's just because I'm getting old, or at least that's what my doctor told me. It's because you're getting old. Well, you know, uh, I'll give you one example. Someone I a couple of people I work with, we do the organic acids test. We did that recently, and when you look at the organic acids test, it looks at yeast, candida, certain bacterial markers, certain markers for mold exposure, mitochondrial function, and glutathione antioxidant capacity, and a few other things. And when you when a person that is reporting kind of brain fog type stuff, or low energy, or they have to have like a couple of cups of coffee every day, or like they have to start the day with a coffee, they can't go without coffee. But when you look at the lab data, you're going to see mitochondrial dysfunction, B vitamin deficiencies. Probably, usually, there's some type of candida or some type of gut dysbiosis, and that's contributing to all this stuff. And you can see antioxidant capacity has been diminished, indicating poor nutritional status and/or increased toxic burden. So with these folks, there's your answer why you are having energy issues. If you, it's not because you're getting older, it's because you have mitochondrial dysfunction and all these other things that I just mentioned. And the mitochondria, they're what create ATP, the adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency of the cell, of the body, as they call it. So if you address those things systematically and gradually, that person will be able to stop drinking coffee, stop needing coffee to function well throughout the day. They will start sleeping better. They will think better. Their mind will work better. But you have to understand the causes of that. And what are the causes? Well, again, eating non-organic food, being in the traffic all day and not doing anything about it, not eating enough protein, not getting enough vitamins, or getting poor bio-unavailable forms of vitamins, minerals as well, and not getting enough rest, too much blue light at night, not enough sunshine, not being too isolated from the earth. That's another one. Not being grounded. Like I always say it I always mention it. I have this thing on my wrist here that connects me to the earths me to the house's earthing sort of infrastructure. So I have one on the bed, like a mat on our bed. So I'm trying to do things like that. Like as soon as we're done with the call, I'm going to put my blue light blocking glasses because it's almost 9 p.m. here. So people are doing a lot of things that on their own, they're minor things. But it's like I was saying earlier, today, you and me, Ricky, we probably got easily a couple of dozen of minor toxic exposures, minor ones. But again, compound that over a week, a month, a year, a decade, and 5 decades, these things compound. They accumulate in the body because most people, again, don't have the capacity to excrete them sufficiently. So we have a long ways to go to educate the regular Joe, I believe, bro.
So let's before we wind down, so I'll put links to your course in the show description. Obviously, people, you've always talked about people can reach out to you, so you're very open to talking to people, communicating with people, helping people out. I think that's obviously always been one of your biggest motivations. It's like, how do I get this information out there to help people? That's why I always enjoy these type of conversations, these type of shows about health, nutrition, how to optimize your body and mind, because I do feel like it's information that can impact and change people's lives immediately. Like somebody can hear this and be like, oh my God, like that could be the missing piece to the puzzle of why I'm tired all the time, or maybe I should change this or change that. and all of a sudden they're happier, they're healthier, they have more energy. And it's like we're so, our time on this planet is so limited. You want to try to get the most out of it, and it's funny because speaking of caffeine, I was listening to a podcast with Andrew Tate and Patrick Bet David, and he was just on, and he was talking about how he eats once a day, and he just caffeinates the day away. And I'm just, he's like, I'm like, you know what? I'm literally on the same diet that Andrew Tate is, because I'm just, and he smokes cigars during the day too. I don't smoke as much as I
You
used
eat once
to.
a day?
I eat once a day. Yeah, I've been doing it for years. Yeah, yeah.
For how long have you been doing
Years.
that?
Quite a few years. Yeah.
And how many calories roughly would you say you eat in that meal?
To quote Dr. Sean Baker, who's been on the show, the carnivore guy, I'm either fasting or feasting. And when I eat, like I'll eat like, I don't know, like 3 steaks in one sitting, and I'll just chow down. I eat a lot, and actually I eat so much that the next morning I'm not even anywhere close to being hungry till like it's late in the day the next day.
What's your weight roughly, just out of curiosity?
I think right now I usually around 180, 185 usually. I typically was like 195 to like 200 would be on the heavier side when I was more into bodybuilding and weightlifting. And now I just try to maintain, and because I play sports, I actually try to keep my weight lower, because as you get older and you get a little bit slower and things hurt a little bit more and recovery takes a little bit longer, my way of like dealing with the recovery and dealing with, okay, how do I keep up with the 20-something-year-old guys that I'm competing with? I'm 38, and it's like, well, it's much harder to get faster by getting stronger. It's much easier to get faster and more agile by getting lighter. So that's kind of what I did. I started instead of kind of always being roughly around 190. I'm like, okay, well, I'm roughly around 180. And it doesn't seem like a lot. 180. It's at my lightest I've been at 170 for a little bit. And then but usually 175, 180 is where kind of I hang out at. And
Nice.
and it doesn't seem like a lot of weight. It's like, okay, well, if I went from 190 to 180, how much of a difference is that really? And it only seems like 10 pounds, but even 5 pounds. Like I've noticed when I get a little bit tighter with my dieting, maybe I'm training a little bit more, maybe work has become a little bit more physically, exerting, and I'm down just a couple pounds. Once I'm on the basketball court or I'm on the soccer field and I'm playing, I feel a tad faster. I feel a little bit more agile. I feel like my endurance is a little better. And then I weigh myself. I'm like, oh, that's why. I'm like, I lost a couple pounds. And so it's like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but even just losing a couple pounds makes a huge difference in regards to those things. It also, gaining a couple pounds also makes a huge difference in strength. It's funny how anybody who's in weightlifting will tell you, you gain a little bit of weight. It doesn't matter if it's good weight or bad weight. If you gain any weight, you naturally get stronger. And but you obviously, if it's bad weight, it comes with other prices. It can hurt your joints can hurt. You can be eating just shitty stuff that will lead to inflammation and other stuff. But yeah, I mean, so that's usually what I hang out at. Even at my busiest, day. I go to the gym in the morning, work all day, play basketball or soccer at night. So, for example, yesterday, even though it was a Sunday, went to the gym in the morning, and typically I don't go to the gym on Sundays. It's one of my rest days. But I woke up and I was like, I'm like, I feel pretty good. I'm like, I'm just gonna go get a light workout in, and so I went to the gym. Didn't play basketball till late or soccer till later in the day. Sundays typically I play soccer. Play soccer for 2 hours straight. We usually play 2 hours start to finish. No rests, no subs, no nothing.
Jesus.
No, typically not even stopping to drink. We'll basically we stop to drink if somebody gets hurt, and then we're like, oh, we have a second, we'll go have a sip of water. But didn't eat till after all that. So I was at the gym, early around 8 in the morning. Didn't finish playing soccer till probably like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and then eat until after that, and went all day just fasted. And you know what? I feel great I feel better almost playing sports fasted than any other state. Even if
Bro, I would love to do some lab testing on you to see how. I would love to like just do some for the scientific aspect of it, to
well,
see how.
one thing that is true, and you'll hear this from people who do the keto diet, people who do fasting, people who do the carnivore diet. It does seem like there's like you hit a wall a little bit, like you don't, because you're not burning that glucose for energy, like you, or you don't have that, that all that stored food and calories, and you're fasting. Like there does seem like at some point, at some times, I felt like I've hit a wall where I don't have that little extra boost. But you know what? I take a lot of pre-workout. I find some good pre-workouts that have more nitric oxide and B vitamins and things that
Beta alanine and stuff.
yeah, and the amino acids and all the things that are going to help with just my muscle fatigue and muscle soreness and lactic acid buildup and all that stuff. And I always try to find ones that aren't high in caffeine, because you can get some cheap pre-workouts out there that are just like, you're just basically
creatine.
What's that?
Caffeine, creatine, beta alanine.
Yeah, exactly. And creatine's great for you. I take creatine every day. That's a real help. Creatine's not expensive. It works. It's beneficial for muscle recovery. It does help. I actually, I know traditionally people would take it post workout. I take it with my pre workout. Usually put it in my pre workout, and then I'll just, Old School Labs is a good one. There's a couple other brands that I use.
I got Charlie to get some actually.
Pre-workout
some creatine. Yeah, after we talked last.
Well, it's actually helpful to optimize your brain too. Like
it's very good for the brain. Yeah.
So it's not. I know a lot of people think of creatine as like this workout thing for like
meatheads.
Athletes, but there's a lot of benefit. Same thing with nitric oxide. Nitric oxide. Now you're hearing about conversations about it helping with like blood clots, because it helps open up your blood vessels. And it's like, I had a friend of mine, older guy, who actually a guy who when I first started my podcast, he's my co-host, Dave. He was a triathlete, did tons of crazy stuff. And I remember when he started taking nitric oxide, we were talking about what brands he uses and what he uses for his pre-workouts or whatever. And then he's like, dude, I take nitric oxide every day, even on my rest days. I'm like, really? Why? And then he's like, I truly believe there's some health benefits in it in regards to opening up your blood vessels and all that stuff. And I'm like, that kind of makes sense. And then like now you're starting to hear a lot more of those conversations of like the benefits of it as like a health supplement, not just like a performance supplement.
And some guys are even taking Cialis or microdosing Cialis or Viagra for similar purposes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
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 I'm sure that has many benefits.
I was gonna say there's probably a lot of jokes that we are keeping in right now that could go along with that statement. But it's well, without a doubt. I mean, it is funny because there was a guy that went to my gym, this guy back in the day who would take it before going to the gym, because it kind of makes sense when you're like, okay, it's literally just bringing more blood flow, to certain areas. So it's like if you're working out, it would make sense that whatever is causing blood flow to go in that specific area would maybe bring blood flow to whatever area you're working out, but it's it is funny. And nitric oxide, a lot of these things, like there's a lot of health benefits of this stuff, and it's not just performance enhancement. There's other benefits to it, and a lot of this stuff, if not the majority of it, comes from food, and you can get a diet, get it from food anyways. You're just basically trying to get more of it to optimize.
Yes. This is why I love amino acids. Taurine, I take it in the evening time to kind of, it's a cardioprotective. It's got hundreds of different functions. It can help you with sleep. Glycine, it helps with it helps to spare collagen, right? It helps to promote good sleep. It's an inhibitory amino acid. It helps to promote sleep. I think it's also gluconeogenic. So if you take it like as a pre-workout, it can be used to create glucose so it can spare muscle protein. Obviously creatine, it's not exactly an amino acid, but we love creatine. That's a daily thing for everybody. I believe everybody should be taking that for the gut, for the brain. Uh, Trimethylglycine as well. That has methyl donors. If you have a specific methylation type genetic polymorphisms like myself, having more methyl donors from trimethylglycine is very useful. It's also good to detoxify mercury and stuff like that. Glycine is also supportive of your antioxidant glutathione, because glutathione is made of cysteine, glutamate, and glycine. Also, N-acetylcysteine, I love that one. It supports, again, glutathione production. It can directly chelate certain things like mercury, certain toxins. It can directly bind them so they can be excreted. So NAC, glycine, taurine. Also, I love, there was one more I just wanted to mention, but I think I am having a senior moment now. Anyway, those are my favorites. So I think folks would do well checking those out.
Yeah, and there's also natural testosterone boosters. How do you?
Maca, Tribulus terrestris.
Yeah,
Maca.
Tinkaga. Well, how do you say Tingaga Ali? What?
Oh, Tonga Ali.
Yeah, Tonga. That's
Yeah, I don't know
another one.
much about that one, but yeah,
that
I've heard of it.
one's really good. And then there's other stuff like Turkerstone and Turk. I think that's how you pronounce it. There's like that is helps with muscle gain and stuff like that. There's a lot of really strong things in the natural world. You know, like you don't need to. You know, and there's just a lack of research on these things. But you're starting to hear more conversations about it, about some of these these supplements and products.
Yeah.
No more plates, more dates. Have you? I know that a lot of people.
I know the guy. Actually, I watched him for a while. When I was looking into those SARMs, selective androgen receptor modulators and stuff, I experimented with those for a while a few years ago.
Yeah, he has a pretty good natural testosterone supplement that has a lot of these herbs that we're talking about. And I will say, like, when I've taken it, I've tried it. You can, a lot of times, if you know which herbs you want, it's cheaper just to buy them yourself and just buy
That's what I do,
the basic version of it, because what you're really paying for is somebody who's just combining a bunch of stuff for you. But you might not even need or want all those things, because that's the other thing about supplements. It's like dosage, right? It's like, oh, it has a little bit of this, but it's not enough to make a difference. So it's like they're just you're paying for some crap you don't really need. There's a great pre-workout called Outworked, and my only complaint about it is that it has sucralose, and the guy who created it, what the hell's his name? If you look him up, you know who he is. He's the guy who debated Dr. Dominic D'Agostino on the Joe Rogan podcast. He has a PhD, really smart guy into bodybuilding and stuff like that. But I'm like, why would you put sucralose in your product?
I hate that, bro.
But so that's why I like Old School Labs, and Zero Type or Type Zero is another brand and that doesn't use sucralose. They use stevia or other natural sweeteners.
Sorry, Ricky. I remembered the other amino acids. It's actually essential amino acids. So I think it's 8 different essential amino acids. So you start with like the branch chain amino acids, and then all the way down to like tryptophan, phenylalanine. There's 8 of them, you know. But bro, have you tried essential amino acids?
Yeah. I've done a bunch of different ones for like recovery. It does. I will say you do seem to not get sore for as long
or tired
or as often,
or anything. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just, and like what I do now, what I'm doing at the moment, because my wife and my kid are kind of away for a month, so I'm trying to like do a little bit of a harder detox. So in the morning, I wake up, and then I'll just have some essential amino acids on an empty stomach, and they're so horrible tasting. I either put them in my own capsules, which is like a real pain in the butt, or what I have is this electrolyte powder. It's the cleanest thing I could find. It's like $40 for a pack, but it's delicious, and it has no like sucralose in this garbage like you were saying. So I'll mix that up, maybe add a little bit of trimethylglycine, maybe some creatine, maybe beta-alanine, or some HMB, which is a muscle-sparing leucine metabolite. And I'll take that on an empty stomach, out with my dog for like an hour walk, like a brisk walk, maybe do some runs, sprints. And the idea is to like add the essential amino acids. There, a lot of them are gluconeogenic or ketogenic, so the body will either make ketones or glucose with them. So you're sparing your own protein, and they absorb super fast. So there isn't that buffer time where the liver still has to kick in gluconeogenesis and then start breaking muscle tissue, and then you feel like a performance drop. So you go there and you start walking, and if I do it on an empty stomach, the, halfway through the walk, I'll start feeling like hitting a wall, and I'll slow down. But with this, you want to speed up, bro. Near the end, like 30, 45 minutes into it, you want to speed up. And then, like, there's these, it's a very hilly place where I live. So it's like a hill, two hills around the circle. So when I reach the bottom of the hill, I want to sprint up. That's how good this concoction is. The only problem is it just tastes like death, but it's a moment on the lips, as they say.
Well,
A moment on the lips, forever on the hips.
well, if you're looking for a good electrolyte supplement, one of my sponsors, Elements from Rob Wolf.
Okay.
It's a awesome product. It's potassium, magnesium, and sodium. I as my listeners know, I'm not a fan of sponsors. So if I ever have sponsors on the show, it's somebody that I'm a fan of, somebody that I like, somebody.
He's awesome.
Yeah, Rob Wolf's awesome. The first time he was on the show, after the show, because we were talking about how much I love his electrolyte product, he ended up reaching out and asking if I'd be open to them being a sponsor. And I love the idea because I drink Element just about almost every day. It's one of the ways that I deal with fasting, because the thing is, when you're very active and you're not eating, you're obviously not getting any sodium or electrolytes from your food because you're not eating, which means staying hydrated becomes much more difficult.
Yeah.
So having the electrolytes with your drink, plus you get to drink something with some flavor that will keep you in your fasting state, that will keep you in your in ketosis. It won't knock you out of any of those things, and yet you can still get electrolytes. You can still stay hydrated. And magnesium obviously has like tons of like health benefits, but it is high on sodium. And one of the reasons why it is high on sodium, because it is designed for active people. The majority of what you're going to sweat out when you're sweating and you're working out, like we were saying, or playing sports, is going to be sodium. Sodium is going to be the majority. That's why when you taste your sweat, when it hits your tongue and it hits your mouth when you're sweating a lot, you're like, oh, it's salty. It's like, yeah, because sodium is what you're sweating out, which means that's what you need to put back in. And there's tons of benefits to sodium. I remember Rob Wolf telling me on the show about the women that were breastfeeding, and how intaking or being on Element actually increased their breastfeeding. Like they were producing more milk and all this other stuff. So, and he actually found out about this because mothers were like telling him and sending him emails and all that stuff. He's like, oh, wow. And then I think they researched it and then found out why exactly that was happening. But Element's a great product. As people know who listen to the show, use the link in the show description and you'll get a free gift with every purchase. But it's a great product, no artificial anything. It's sweetened with stevia, and it has the amount of electrolytes that you need. It is high in sodium because of that exact reason we spoke about. But that's the thing. Products can be very deceiving, and food can be very deceiving. That's why it gets very hard for people to know what's healthy. They'll look at a product and they'll be like, hey, this is keto friendly. Is this healthy? And it's like, no, because keto just means that they're labeling it as a low carb, low sugar or no sugar product. It doesn't mean it's healthy. They could reach that low carb nutritional facts because they've put a bunch of dietary fiber. It has like some ridiculous amounts of dietary fiber, or it's sweetened with sucralose or some other artificial sweetener, so it doesn't have sugar. They can label it as sugar free, but it has some other crappy product in there. So it can be very deceiving. And then in regards to supplements and products like or hydration drinks, it can say, oh, it has potassium or magnesium, but it doesn't have enough of it where it makes a difference, where it's actually going to help you with performance and all that stuff.
Yes. For example, my wife, we did a hormone test on my wife. Her testosterone was very low, so that will cause your estrogen to be very low, because testosterone gets aromatized into the various into estrogen, and there's certain pathways there that we were trying to support. So we got out. We had some maca, which is one of the first things you would try, rhodiola, rosea, maca. And on the packet of this 100-gram packet of maca, it says high in zinc, high in magnesium. And then I looked, and it's got, I think it was 2 milligrams of zinc for the entire packet. So, but you take 5 grams, you take 1/20th of that. So I'm like saying to my wife, look at a very blatant case of freaking false advertising, like high in zinc. It's got 2 milligrams of zinc. I can't remember. Maybe it was 5. Like 2 milligrams of zinc, and you're gonna get 1/20th of that with every dose that you take. It's like, come on. I take more. I take 7 times more twice a day than that entire packet contains with this zinc supplement I have here.
Well, that's why sometimes you'll go to some pharmacy or some grocery store and you buy some vitamins and you don't realize, like, okay, it's not working or it's not helping because you're buying some crappy product that either, like you said, doesn't have a whole lot of what you're looking for, or it's really low quality. That's the other thing. Like, not all vitamins are the same quality. Like Rogan talked about it recently, and I don't know if he talked about it with Robert Kennedy Jr., which episode recently he talked about it, but it's something that, people like you and I are aware of, is that a lot of supplement companies, like, you only get like 20, 30, maybe 40% what they say is on the label. Like, a lot of it's cheap fillers, and it's just because it's not really regulated. Now, that's one of the reasons why people demonize supplements, and that's why, in a way, I'm like, I got to be honest, like, there is a lot of fuckery in the supplement world, but it doesn't mean that, like, you should trust pharmaceutical companies, because the same reason why some supplement companies are lying to you, or the same reason why some pharmaceutical companies are lying to you, because they're trying to make maximum profit. Now, you find the ones that you can trust. You find companies that have a history of putting out good products, been around for a while, that seem like reputable people, and those are ones you go to. And but yeah, there's a lot of, like, companies that just want to make a quick buck. So it's like pre-workout. You find these pre-workouts that have, like, these ridiculous names, like, like whatever, like some get raged or whatever, beast mode, and which is funny because more plates, more dates. It's his pre-workout. I think it's called Gorilla Mode, and but his products seem pretty good. They do seem a little bit on the pricey side. I know his pre-workouts pretty good. I've purchased it before and I've tried it, but it is a little bit on the pricey side. And you're like, wait, I know all these ingredients. I'm like, what are you paying top dollar for these? I'm like, because why is it more expensive than this other company? But and then some stuff, like we said, you don't even need. Like I said, that a company called Outworked, their pre-workout only has like 4 ingredients or something like that. He's like, these are the ones you need the most, and so I'll give you a whole lot of these and not give you and a little bit of this or a little bit of, like, not enough to really make a difference. Sometimes you see that, right? Like, you'll see a pre-workout or any supplement, then it's like, 75% of your daily value of vitamin C. I'm like, why? Why is that even in there? What is 75% of my, or even 100% of my daily value of vitamin C? Like, why do I need that in my pre-workout? Yeah. And 2, what is that even going to do? And I mean, the one thing I do have to remind myself of is that when you're working out heavily and training hard, your immune system will take a hit. And I do think that sometimes they don't emphasize your immune system, because when you work out really hard, like, you can get sick, because your resources are going to recovering from the workout. Yes. And it's not, and then it's weaker and it doesn't have the strength to take care of the whatever sickness that you might be dealing with. So there was I don't know if it was amino acid product or whatever that had, they actually stopped making it, which was a shame, but it was amino acid product that had like amino acids, creatine, and had like a huge amount of like zinc and vitamin C. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect, because I'm like, this is kind of something you kind of need. Like, you need to think about your immune system when you're recovering, right? And if you're doing a recovery product, it probably does make sense to have some type of immune system strengthening, ingredient in there to help you out with that. So it is kind of a neglected part of it, your immune system. And but yeah, I mean, just buy stuff that you do some research. Don't just buy what's the cheapest. Don't just buy whatever's the most convenient because it's at the grocery store. Actually try to buy some good products, because not every vitamin C is made equal. Not every zinc product is made equal.
Sure,
and they come from different sources and they're different qualities. So without a doubt.
Sure, brother.
Any other tips or anything else you want to leave the listeners with before we let them know where to get your products, or your courses, if they want to connect with you? What's the easiest way of connecting with you? Any of that stuff?
Sure, bro. Thank you so much for having me again, brother. I really enjoyed it. I love talking to you. We can nerd out on this stuff forever. I will just say, you might want to check out, I think Bulk Powders have a .com website, bulk.com or bulkpowders.com. That's where I get my powders from. Creatine, everything is powders. Obviously it's bulk powders, so they deal in large quantities, so the prices are very cheap. So I get like D-ribose, like a kilogram of that, acetyl L-carnitine, a kilogram of that would be like €80, €80. And to get that in like small supplement forms like that in bottles could cost you like a couple hundred, I guess, $200-300 more. So they have like all the amino acids, and then you can make your own beta alanine, all the citrulines, whatever one needs, and not just for pre-workouts, but just for daily support for detox. I use these products for daily detoxification support mostly, and immune system support and stuff like that. So they have a lot of good high quality powders. They're encapsulated forms of things I normally stay away from. Like they have a lot of excipients and fillers. That's why I prefer to get the powders, because it has only powder purportedly, right? So that's a little tip. I think in the USA they operate as well, so that's a good one. And they're cheap and high quality. And yeah, so my website is christianyordanov.com. That's where you can find everything. I have my Connecting Minds podcast. Ricky has been on that a couple of times. Also my children's health podcast. Ricky was on that this last month, I think, in the last 3 weeks, I think. So that was a really nice episode there. I do health consulting. My website has information on that. We do advanced lab testing, so we can really get to the underlying issues that are contributing to folks' energy problems or gut dysfunction or whatever folks may be suffering from. And this course, my detox workshop, Ricky, you will have the link down below. Folks can check that out if they're interested. That includes a 45-minute consultation with myself, where we can, again, like I mentioned before, we can discuss any stuff that you want to discuss related to health, to how to navigate the course, to how to approach the course so you maximize the value from it if you do decide to get into it. I also offer 50-minute free discovery consultations for folks if they're interested, to see if I can help them. And yeah, that's about it, bro. Thanks again for having me on, and it was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and thanks for chatting with me. Definitely check out that last episode, or that appearance I had on one of your recent episodes of your parenting podcast. I shared it on my social media or whatever, and I had tons of positive feedback. Just
Nice.
It's funny because it's like, I think you probably had to be a parent to enjoy it. If you weren't a parent, you're probably just annoyed of us just talking about being a parent and have, our kids.
Well, that's why it's a children's health podcast, so we can talk about from a parent's perspective, which, by the way, I love, bro. Like, we're gonna have to have you back on there. Actually, the second part I will publish as well. I publish it for my members community. It's free to join, but some someone unsubscribed, completely closed their account after I published that episode. So I think we may have ruffled some feathers, which is a good thing. But like I'd love to have you back on again to talk other stuff, because I feel like you're an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to parenting, not just on protecting your kids, but like raising your kids. And like we can talk about uh like your football coaching stuff. And I think there'll be a lot of tips for myself and other folks that we can, you know, derive from our conversations with you, so we can be better parents, which is, at the end of the day, it's one of our main duties, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's definitely the most important one. You know, it's
Yeah.
the job. You know, it's funny. So many people neglect that important job for what they think is a more important job. And I'm like, no job is more important than being a parent. Like that is
Yes.
the most important job. If like one job is going to sacrifice, it's not going to be parenting. Like I'll sacrifice
Yes.
maybe being worse at my full-time job than, you know, than being a parent, because
For sure.
without a doubt, it's you know, you don't get that time back, and you have no idea what impact negatively or
Mm.
positively you're having on your children. And the more you can be involved, the more you can learn and grow, and the more you can focus on that specific task of being, you know, involved in their journey, the better job you're going to do, and then the better outcome I think you're going to have with
Yeah.
your children. You know, I
That
think too
that
often.
creates a ripple effect, like down the generations, you know, that we can't overemphasize how important that is, really.
No, I mean, it's not a surprise that you see parents that are more focused on their career, or parents that maybe aren't as involved with their kids, and what ends up happening, like their kids end up being druggies, addicts, depressed, right? I mean, how many times in America do we hear stories about mass shooters or school shooters, and then you hear the parents say on TV, like, I had no idea he was planning this for 6 months or what. And I'm just like, how are you, the parent of this child? Your kid is chronically depressed, planning to kill people because he's so depressed and unhappy and so unfulfilled. And you didn't pick up on any of this? Like, none of this, you know, like, there was no signs. Like, when I'm around my kids, if they're not themselves, I notice it. Like, I notice that, like, hey, he doesn't seem like himself. There's something bothering him. And I'll try to get it out. And maybe he doesn't want to talk about it at the
Mm.
time, or maybe she doesn't want to talk about it at the time. But I know I'll, like, make a conscious decision to be like, okay, I'll come back to this. I'll circle. Maybe not right now is not the best time, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
let this go. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's bothering
Mm.
them. I want to be able to help them. I want to be able to communicate with them. So it's like, to me, like, so often some of these issues can be fixed or resolved or worked on if you just care enough to pay attention, you know, and care enough to you know, to talk to them, and you know, and yeah, I mean, communication is a lost art, you know, and even with our children and our spouses, our children, our loved ones, people who are close to one another. Like, sometimes we don't take the time to try to get through to them as best as we can. A lot of times, you know, it causes, you know, the second there's friction, you're like, oh, forget it, you know, like, they're not listening or whatever. But it's like, you know, let's try to figure out, okay, how do I take a different approach to get through to them? How do I get them to talk? How do I get them, you know,
Mhm.
communication isn't always pleasant, and it's not always easy, but it's always necessary. So, you know, it's very important. So, but thank you so much,
Feels so
Christian,
good.
again, for staying up late with me and partying and talking about so many different things.
Thank you,
And
brother.
please, people, check out his links in the show description. If you want to reach out, he is more than happy to help out, answer your questions. He's made it his life's work to read a bunch of books that most of us would probably fall asleep trying to read, or have a headache trying to understand. He's done that all for us. So please, if you want to learn a little bit, check out his podcast, check out his work. He's been on The Youth Unwanted. He's been on Charlie Robinson's show. He's a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much for all the hard work and research you do to you know, help us better understand how to optimize our body and mind and lives. So And
Thank you, Ricky, brother.
and hopefully we
Thank
talk
you.
again in the near future. And hopefully we can get you on a You Don't Want It in near future too. I know
That would be awesome, bro.
it's kind of, I know they're late shows.
Would be nice to do a European one at some point again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to make it a little easier for some of you guys. You and like Alex Craner and Jessica Rose, Dr. Jessica Rose, you guys have been troopers where you guys have stayed up late to do a lot of these shows with your friends in the West Coast.
You have to do it, man. Like it's like this was the highlight of my day, you know.
That's it's funny, but but it's not funny at the same time.
No, it's awesome, dude. Like you're like one of my favorite podcasters, bro. Like you're, I cannot think of a more eclectic podcaster, you know, that I know.
I appreciate that.
So,
I really
thank
do.
you, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work you do as well.
Thank you. Yeah, well, this is easy. I get people like you on, and you know, I feed off you. You guys are. This show wouldn't exist if I didn't have amazing guests who are willing to come on and talk for a couple hours and bounce ideas off each other. So,
Yeah.
Without a doubt,
It's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a blast. So, it's a journey for the listeners. It's also a journey for us participating in it. So, we all grow together. But hey, thanks again. I'll send you links to this show once it's up and live to share anywhere you would like. Of course, like we mentioned, please send me anything that you want in the show description. I'll put links to your podcast, to your courses, any of that stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk again in the near future.
Thank you, bro.
Hey, thanks. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
I believe in the ripple effect.